I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. And here we are. Finally an official trailer for Jurassic World Dominion. I had meant to get around to doing the little prologue scene that they released, where you have the flashback to prehistoric times, and then they jump ahead to modern times where the T-Rex is at the drive-in theater. Just never got around to it. I thought that sequence was interesting, certainly, but now we have an actual trailer, an actual look at what the movie is going to be like. And it contains a little bit of footage from that prologue scene, but the real question is, how does the rest of the movie look? Well, first of all, pardon the constant change in lighting. That's what happens when the colors on the screen are constantly altering. Sometimes it's brighter, that makes the rest of it darker. I saw somebody notice that in one of these other kind of videos. But anyway, not exactly in my control, at least as far as I can tell. But let's get on to the trailer itself. Visually speaking, it certainly looks like a feast for the eyes. There are lots of wide, sweeping shots, panoramic views of the countryside and different areas where the dinosaurs are roaming around. It's clearly trying to impart more of that wonder sense that Jurassic Park has always had. The thought of, isn't it cool that there are dinosaurs roaming around these areas? And we have a few shots of them in urban areas as well. At least in terms of the trailer, those don't necessarily look like they're shot the same way. The urban shots are not as wide. Their camera is not pulled back to get as much of the area as possible. It's more zoomed in. It's got a focal point that it's following around, and you can see areas behind it, but it still doesn't necessarily feel as expansive. There's a sort of closeness to it. Probably because these are action scenes, the less room you have to move around in a chase certainly, the more intense it theoretically is. And the action certainly does look like it'll be intense. Chases through urban areas and rampages through forests, the scene with the Quetzalcoatlus and the plane. Actually, let's land on that for just a moment. Maybe it's just me, but did anyone else notice a Godzilla 2014 sound effect when they did this particular sequence? It's in the movie. Like, you remember Godzilla's made landfall in Honolulu. It's after the tidal wave has passed, and you get that one really nice shot where the camera's looking down at the water passing by, then it looks up at the building across the way, and you see the soldiers launching the flares. Then the camera follows the flares, and as they arc down, they illuminate this massive wall of scaly flesh that is Godzilla coming, and you hear that low rumbling sound. I swear that's in this trailer. When the Quetzalcoatlus shadow passes over the plane, it sounds exactly like that. I don't know if that's just a stock sound that they're using, or if they somehow snuck it in, or if they got permission to use it, I don't know, but I swear it's the same noise. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean this is going for a kaiju movie sort of thing. Clearly, there is a Nature on the Rampage aspect, but they said they weren't going to do a dinosaurs tearing through cities like Godzilla thing. So, I don't know, that's just something I noticed. Another thing I noticed is that this sequence right here, where you have the wintry thing and what looks like a fortress, for some reason that's making me think of War for the Planet of the Apes. That's the final entry in the Planet of the Apes prequel trilogy. For some reason, it just looks that way. Now, War for the Planet of the Apes was also the conclusion of a trilogy about nature rising up and wiping mankind off the map in terms of being the dominant species. So, is that maybe a hint of where this movie's going? I don't necessarily know if the Jurassic series wants to end on a note like that. Because, with Planet of the Apes, that was kind of the point. Its whole idea was to build up to the original movies where apes are in control and humans live in the wilderness as ignorant, primitive savages. Whereas the Jurassic movies, they don't necessarily have anything they're building towards in that sense. They could still be building towards something kind of fatalistic, but I don't know, maybe I'm reading too deeply into this. But that's not the only draw this time around. In terms of the human side of the movie, and Jurassic Park is one of those rare instances where the human and dinosaur sides are actually on equal footing, one of the major draws for Jurassic World Dominion is that Alan Grant, Ellie Sattler, and Ian Malcolm will all be in the film again, as opposed to dividing up the sequels between them as they had in the original series. And, well, they're played by their original actors, we know that much, but here's the real interesting thing. When it comes to nostalgia-baiting movies, there are certain promises which, if made, must be delivered, and must be delivered a particular way. When you look at the Star Wars sequel trilogy, for example, a big deal was made about how Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia Organa were all going to be brought back, played by their original actors. Same with Chewbacca and eventually Lando, of course. But a major critique of those films is that there was never a moment where all of those characters were brought back together as they were in the original trilogy. In fact, The Force Awakens literally killed any prospect of that happening by having Han Solo get run through with a lightsaber. And even if, I say if, they had some kind of plan to bring him back and give him a scene with Luke and Leia, well, unfortunately Carrie Fisher passed away in real life, so now they really didn't have the opportunity. So, that was something that even fans of the movies, I think, would say was a bit of a misstep at least. Here, though, we now know that that's not going to be the case. Even if it's just for this scene, we know that the original crew and the reboot crew are all going to be together at some point. That alone is a big deal. That alone shows that, at least in some way, this movie has learned from the nostalgia films of the past. We will see to what extent this actually is significant, and to what extent those original characters play a role in the film itself, but we at least know it's happening, so points for that at least. How many times have I said at least just then? Probably too many. Speaking of nostalgia, look who's back. Finally, the Dilophosaurus. After being a hologram in Jurassic World and a diorama statue in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, finally Dominion is bringing back the actual thing. And from the look of it, the Dilophosaurus is being realized with practical effects. Now, of course, much like with the actors, we still have the question of how much screen time it's going to get. But then again, the Dilophosaurus in the original movie didn't get that much screen time either. It got a very memorable scene, yes, but it was just the one scene. So, will this Dilophosaurus get a similarly memorable scene? Will the Dilophosaurus be in it more or less? Who knows? All we know is that the Dilophosaurus is in it. So, is the movie looking good? Is it looking bad? Is it looking middle of the road? Well, like I said, visually interesting. Story-wise, we're getting certain beats here and there that are certainly hinting at a story which will somehow bring everything to a close. It's just a question of whether or not that closure will be on a bright note, a dark note, an ambiguous note, or what have you. We also have this shot, and I'm wondering if this shot actually has any prehistoric creatures in it. 'Cause it might be an especially large swarm of small pterosaurs like Dimorphodons or something, but it sure as heck looks like a swarm of locusts to me. And I wonder if that's what it actually is. Is it perhaps showing that reintroducing dinosaurs into the modern ecosystem has had some kind of dire effect where nature's thrown all out of whack, and now things like this are happening? We're getting literal plagues where we didn't have them before. Just a question, I think. With a movie, of course, I'm sure we'll answer it, unless this is one of those trailer exclusive shots or for a deleted scene or something. I don't know. But, again, it's one of those shots that has me wondering. Whatever the case, I am thinking this looks good. It's the final film, apparently. They're not hoping for spin-offs or starting a multiverse or whatever. It looks like this really is being designed to bring the whole Jurassic saga to a close. Fulfill that contract of a 6-picture deal and bring it to some sort of finale. And I hope it's a good finale. I hope that it brings everything together. Because a well-done sequel, a well-done story that goes back to mine for nostalgia, but also wants to bring the story in a new direction and actually give certain things some closure, that can be really good if done right. It can even reframe the stuff that came before it that maybe wasn't so beloved, as we've seen recent examples of such works do. Spider-Man No Way Home did it, Ghostbusters Afterlife did it, Cobra Kai did it. Now the question is, will Jurassic World Dominion do it? I suppose we'll see in June. In the meantime, I gotta get some Jurassic-themed videos going for when that happens. Gotta ride the algorithm somehow. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the trailer, and I'm sure you guys have thoughts as well, so comment, do what you do. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.